everybody. This is Jessica Dunton here, and we're going to talk a little bit about flipping the classroom today. This is an organizer that I've kind of put together to lead you through the process of flipping the classroom. The first thing you want to do on this organizer, like I would tell with kids, is put your name on it so that we know whose is whose. And today's date is the 13th, Friday the 13th. And we're going to be looking at a few questions that are going to help lead us through creating just the flip of one single lesson, or a single concept within a lesson, a single skill within a lesson. And so you can use this organizer over and over again, and we do have extra copies, and there are also copies available for you to access online, and I'll show you how to get to those later. So if this helps you at all, but I just wanted to create this to keep it a little more visual. So the first question is, what areas of instruction am I trying to teach? Okay, for some of you that might be pretty easy because maybe you just teach one subject like music or art. For those of us in elementary, we teach, you know, the whole gamut. So we aren't going to flip the whole curriculum all at once. We're going to pick an area that we're going to flip. And let's just say maybe I want to flip something in math. And maybe another one I'm thinking about that I'd like to flip is something with grammar, okay? Because we don't really teach so much grammar. You know, the kids aren't getting as much grammar maybe as we feel they need. So maybe those two pieces I'm thinking about. So this first one, number one, is really kind of, you know, brainstorming for you, just so you can go through it and get some ideas. So you're going to brainstorm through that a little bit. Then which one do you really want to focus on? Because, you know, math and grammar, for example, are very different. So to think a little bit, which one of those am I going to focus on? Well, you know what, today let's focus on grammar. A lot of my lessons have been focused on math, so I think I'm just going to pick grammar. Now, the next question is, what are my instructional goals within the area? Okay, so I can write, and there's so many different ways, you know, that we can state our goals. We have learning targets. We have anything that you guys have seen throughout the years that has maybe been useful to you. And I'm just going to write a sentence. Kids will use question marks at the end of questions. You can see this is not a huge thing to teach. It's one really small skill. You could say they'll use periods. You could say they'll use exclamation points. You could say it could be about commas. It could be about any of those pieces. And of course, you know, you're probably not doing grammar. You're doing something else. But I'm just using the grammar because I can pick a really simple thing out of it. Of these goals, which content can be most easily flipped? So maybe you come up with a few goals, and I just named off a couple for you. Which content can be most easily flipped? This is the one that I'm going to use right here. And now, how do I plan to flip the content? So we have to think about the area that you're working in. Today we're going to be working, you know, under the camera. But if for your lesson today, if you're thinking, you know what, the camera's not really going to work for me this way, we have access to iPads, to laptops, to video camera as well. So there are certainly other things that you can use insofar as that goes. And along with this, you know, when you're thinking about doing the actual flip, you can start to think about things like your classroom setup and things that go along with that. You don't have to get so into that right this moment today, but that's kind of where you would go next with that. What would this look like if I had live kids in front of me and I wasn't just sitting here by myself playing? So yeah, to just kind of think about that. So how do I plan to flip the content? Well, for me, I'm just going to, you know, write some examples, and I'm going to talk about, you know, when we use the question marks here, and I'm just going to kind of make some notes, and then that would be just one video that I would do. That would be a nugget, talking about when we use them, writing some examples. Another nugget might be giving two sentences and saying which one has a question mark. So that would be a separate piece that you could do, and you could make, you know, those videos, and that could be a warm-up exercise for kids. You have 2 sentences that you put in. Which one do you use the question mark on? Copy the sentence that you use the question mark on, so you can get some writing practice in. If that's how you're teaching, you know, for example, maybe that's not how you're teaching, and there's something else that would fit better there. But this is just an example. So 2 sentences to compare. And again, these are separate nuggets. That would be nugget 1. That would be nugget 2. And so you start to see how it builds, because maybe when you do this lesson, you do this and then suddenly something else comes up. You know, you can't teach any more about question marks for the next bit because you got to prepare the kids for some testing or for whatever else might come up. It's just other things take priority. I know that happens. This is no question. So you've got this nugget though already, and then later you can build on it with that same group of kids or with a second group of kids coming behind. And if we can share this, then other teachers can also build on it as well. They can use what you've developed and add to it. And that's kind of where we're going with this. And then you think, what resources and materials do I need to flip the content? Now, in my case with the math, sometimes I will bring over little colored blocks or calculator or a small little clock that I can move the hands around on. And in my top drawer, I've always got something colorful that I can grab, because I love to have colors that I can differentiate stuff with. So it's always good to have certain things just handy that you can just kind of reach in your drawer and pull out. You know, you never know when you might need a bouncy ball or some tape, some yellow tape, or a pom-pom. I mean, any of that kind of stuff can just kind of come in handy. And you'll sort of develop your own toolbox and kind of know what you have, where you have it, and that sort of falls more into your classroom setup. But it goes along with getting these resources and materials. And these are resources and materials you'd have to teach that lesson anyway. You know, you're planning to teach a lesson, you're planning some resources and materials with it, just bring them to the area that you're going to be flipping in, basically. And so, you know, for this lesson, I just need something to write with and some paper, you know. And if there's anything else, I'm not gonna complicate it. Really, it's question marks. It doesn't have to be complicated. And then, what resources and materials do my students need to access or learn the content? Well, I'd like them to have a piece of paper out and a pencil, you know, so probably the same thing. And then another thing actually that you could do is, you know, for like a third nugget, you could give students an activity to do by writing 2 sentences with question marks. You know, you don't actually give them the sentence, you tell them to write it. And so that's another way to build it. So maybe if they're doing that content, maybe you're going to have them color it, maybe draw a picture and illustrate it too, and really, you know, build on the whole question mark theme. And if that's the case, you know, you want to make sure they've got something colorful to work with. And then how can I set my classroom up to support this? And that's what I just started to talk about, you know, up there a little bit. And this, you might want to draw some diagrams. I'm always drawing, like, okay, you know, the projector's here, and this is where my whatever is. And, you know, I've played a lot with classroom setup over the years, because sometimes, like with my Tandberg unit, there's been times that I've wanted to use it, but then there's been times that I've used it, and it's like, this is in the middle of the room, it's in the way, and I can't quite figure out how to get it. But now I finally got it so that it's not in the middle of the room anymore, and I can really use it in the way that I want to use it with. So, but that comes from, well, this didn't work, let's just keep trying. Well, let's try this, you know. And you have to just kind of think about, I mean, that is risk-taking behavior in a way, but it doesn't have like dire consequences. Just, you know, maybe a little wasted time, but it's not wasted if you learn something. And that's kind of how I feel about it in my own classroom. And so this is the basic idea of how you would go through this organizer and complete it. So then I hit